Hey everybody, welcome to Spikey Saturday number 74 on the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and it's time for a Shadows over Innistrad draft recap. I drafted Shadows over Innistrad last night at Friday Night Magic for the very first time, and I recorded every last minute of the draft. So we're going to go over all of my picks, and then I'll let you know how the draft actually went. But let's go on to the video and check out the draft. Here we are with our first pack of Shadows over Innistrad. I excitedly open it and I figure out what rare do I get? What do I get? I got a common flip card and I got a Port Town. Just a showland. Not terribly exciting. This pack was hard. There was a Graph Mole, a Tenacity, a Hope Against Hope, Dead Weight, Reduced to Ashes, Rabid Bite. I wasn't sure what to pick from this pack, and frankly I've seen a lot of Shadows over Innistrad packs like this where they just seem really weak. And I think it's the existence of a lot of bad rares, or at least very weak rares. So I kind of pushed the Dead Weight to the front. I mean, it's sort of removal along with the Reduce Ashes. I think about the Graft Mole, but I don't think it's first pickable. I know the Arsonists are okay, but I also don't terribly think that they're first pickable. Here I am revealing it to the crowd, because of course you need to reveal your double face cards. Please make sure that you do that at your drafts. Don't try to hide them or anything. I pushed Dauntless Cathar to the front because, you know, it's also a really good card. I'm very sadly looking at 3 commons as my first picks here out of this pack. There's a Puncturing Light, but I don't think it's nearly as good as the 3 cards that I pushed to the front. Maybe it's a little bit better than the Reduced to Ashes. But man, this was a tough choice. Let me know what you guys would have taken first pick here, because I just did not know. I thought about taking the Showland. I mean, it's worth $6 right now, but of course that's going to drop. It's probably going to end up more like 3. I do ultimately just take the Dauntless Cathar because it felt like the best card in the pack, but boy, did that pack feel weak. The next pack is here, and we see if it's any better. We've got a Spirit on the front, which I'm a pretty big fan of. Flipping through the rest of the cards, there's a Pyre Hound, there's a Spectral Shepherd, which I reread. There's a To the Slaughter, which got past me, which I think is okay. There's also a Town Gossip Monger, and a foil Fake Delver, a foil Aberrant Researcher. So I push the Town Gossip to the front. I think it's a fairly okay card, or at least, actually, I keep it in the bag there, but spoiler alert, it will get pushed to the front. Aberrant Researcher I just don't think is terribly playable. There we go, Town Gossip Monger to the front, To the Slaughter to the front. I look through, there is the Bounce spell, which I'm a fan of, but I'm really kind of looking at these 3 cards here. I don't like To the Slaughter. It's not great removal. Edict effects are fine, but you know, they're not great. I don't want to super high pick them usually. So Gossip Monger gets pushed up to the front, and I do ultimately take it. Of course, revealing to the crowd that I took Town Gossip Monger by putting it on top of my pile. Next pack, we've got a Throttle, Sanguinary Mage, a Lightning Axe. Lightning Axe gets pushed right to the front because, with my experience with Shadows over Innistrad so far, I may just not see removal. There's a Sleep Paralysis as well, which gets pushed to the front, and really I'm looking at 3 removal spells here. Do I want black, do I want blue, or do I want red? I figure I'll take red because, you know, red-white seems like a viable deck to go into, so I do take the the Lightning Axe. Now, at this point, I saw my person to the right was taking a Handwear Militia Captain. They took a white card, so now I thought about, well, maybe I should think about getting out of white because it's going to get cut hard. This pack, I push a Gone Missing to the front. I look through the back. The uncommons are looking pretty bad with Creeping Dread. Tenacity's fine, but again, I know my opponent, or my person to the right is in white, so I don't super want to jump into that too much more. There's a Hinterland Logger, which is just a fine sort of bear. It's not great, but it is fine. And, you know, if I can, I could go Red-Green Werewolves. That's an option off of my Lightning Axe. But Gone Missing still sitting at the front. Hinterland Logger gets pushed up there. Maybe I just want to take a bear. There's a Howlpack Wolf as well, which is okay, but man, I don't want to take really any of these cards third pick. Maybe the Gone Missing, but, you know, 5 mana is quite a bit for what Gone Missing does. So ultimately, I do think about it a little bit more. I was about to spoil what I take. There we go. I do just take the Hinterland Logger, figuring, why not? Maybe Red-Green Werewolves could be a thing. Next pack, we've got a Vessel, we've got another big turtle, we've got a Merlin Drafter, we've got Erdwall Illuminator, Gibbering Fiend. Well, that goes with the red that I've taken so far. It's not A terribly bad card. Of course, you want to get Delirium on for it. Erdwile Illuminator definitely looks interesting, but I've taken absolutely nothing that goes towards the Spirit Clue deck outside of maybe the Cathar, and I'm trying to get out of white anyways. So I'm really looking at this pack, and this again feels like a weak pack. I feel like there are a lot of just weak packs in Shadows over Innistrad. Of course, that's off of one draft. Hopefully it changes in the future. But yeah, I'm really kind of struggling with this draft already, just 4 picks in. But I do go for the Gibbering Fiend, and I start to really kind of decide to go into red, probably green. Next pack, we've got Magnifying Glass. Hey, a Dance with the Devils, that's good. There's a Stitch Mangler as well, pretty decent. And then garbage in the rest of the pack. The pack is basically dead already. Dance with the Devils just seems like the straightforward pick there, so I take it. Next up, we've got ourselves a Moldagoyf, a Red Vessel. A Pyrehound is fine. There's a Rise from the Tides. There's another Hinterland Logger. At this point, I look over and see that my person to the right has now taken a Hinterland Logger as well. So they are in white, and I decided to get out of white. And they are in green after I decided to get into green. And I figured I have to stop just, getting out of their colors. I need to make a stand at some point. But I do take the Pyrehound here. I still think that I'm going to head into green, I think, just because I don't want to get into white because of how early my person to the right took their white card, and it was a rare card, so I know they're definitely going to try to heavily build around it. Next up, we've got, a Drownyard Temple. Yeah, Liliana's Indignation. Grotesque Mutation's okay. I've taken no black. There's a Sanguinary Mage. There's a Gatstaff Arsonist. I take the Arsonists. I'm in red. I'm firmly decided that I'm in red, so I take the Arsonists because I thought about trying out red-green werewolves, and, that takes me one step closer. Time for my pack to come back around. The Reduce in Ashes is still there, as is the Graph Mole and the Moldagoyf. There's also a Confront the whatever it is. But I take the Reduce in Ashes. I know I'm red, and it's removal. It's not great removal, but it is removal, so I do take it. Next pack, we've got a single red card in the pack, an Ember Eye Wolf. There's also just not much. I think about the Stern Constable. I think about maybe just continuing to fight for white, but it doesn't seem like something I want to do. So I figure, well, Ember Eye Wolf is a wolf. I could try to go for the wolf synergies, and it's aggressive. It's not great, but I could take it. Next pack, we've got a Sanguinary Mage. Seems like the only pick in the pack. I wasn't going to take the Apparatus or the Fork in the Road. 3 picks left. Shard of Broken Glass, Creeping Dread, or Syllaburn Snapper. There's nothing going on in this pack, so I take the Shard, but I have no intentions of playing it. Second last pick, we've got a Weirding Wood or a Structural Distortion. This pick I actually really hesitate on. I just about take the Weirding Wood, and then I figure, no, I know I'm in red, so I'll take the Structural Distortion for the sideboard. And then the last pick, Ember Eye Wolf. So, hey, maybe I can go mono Ember Eye Wolves. So end of pack 1, I'm fairly certain I'm in red. I don't quite know where I'm going in the other direction. I'm thinking about green. I do want to try out the red-green werewolves. We'll see what comes my way in pack 2, though. But my deck's feeling a little bit weak. I didn't get any sort of powerful cards. So hopefully pack 2 can change things here. And I've opened pack 2. I'm showing off my double face card, and now you guys can see I've got a Stitched Mangler. I've got not too much so far in the rest of the pack. Grotesque Mutation. Yeah, there seem to be just dead packs in the commons. You'll see in a Crack-a-Pack in a week or so that I did that there are packs where you can get to like the second or third last card without finding a card that's first pickable. Markov Dread Knight's my rare, which is okay, but I've taken really nothing for black and nothing even synergistic that could work with the Dread Knight. So I'm looking through and I've got the Howlpack Wolf. The Howlpack Resurgence really would push me into the red-green wolves deck, and I do decide to take that and figure, all right, let's build around wolves. Let's give that a go. Next pack, we get past. Hopefully something good. We get, there's a Rapid Bite, so, Fight Bite is always good. There's a Throttle. There's a Second Harvest, which is not very good. So I've made the decision to go red-green now, so really Rapid Bite is the only pick. I'm not going to take the dual shot or anything like that, so I take that and pass. Next up, we've got ourselves an Inquisitor's Ox, Just the Wind, a Cathar's Companion. There's a Moldagoyf, which I pushed to the front because it's green, I guess. There's a Sanguinary Mage. There's an Ulrich's Kindred, which, of course, goes into the red-green werewolves deck quite nicely. An Accursed Witch at the back, but I'm pretty solidly not black. Black almost feels ever so slightly open, but I don't really think it is. The signals in this draft felt really weird. I really could not get a handle on who was in what at all. But I take that Ulrich's Kindred and continue down the Werewolves plan. Next pack comes our way. We've got, a Foil Swamp. Moorland Drifter. We've got an Insolent Neonate. Yeah, there's not much in here. I'm out of frame, but there's a Convicted Killer at the back, and I take that because, hey, it's a werewolf, and it's not a terrible one. It's overcosted for a 2/2 and undercosted for a 4/4, so why not get in the deck? Next pack, we've got ourselves a Voldaren Duelist, an Insolent Neonate, we've got a Gibbering Fiend, and not really anything else. So I push the 3 red cards to the front, and I'm really kind of torn between Voldaren Duelist and Gibbering Fiend. One's a 2-drop, one's a 4-drop. One's going to sort of help my little guys get through maybe a little bit more if my opponent has 1 blocker. The Gibbering Fiend is a 2-drop. He's a little guy. He's going to be able to get in, and maybe I can make Delirium happen with my second Gibbering Fiend and ping for 2 a turn. It's a little bit pie in the sky, but it's a possibility. Next pack is going to come our way, and we've got not much so far. We've got a Moldagoyf and an Aim High, and that's the end of that story. There's nothing in this pack. It looks like... No, it doesn't look like anything's open. Again, this is a pack where the commons just died off really hard, but I do take that Moldagoyf. Next pack, we've got ourselves a Dual Shot, a Hulking Devil, a Quilled Wolf seems fine for my deck, so I take it because I'm not taking the Cobble Brute reprint, and there was nothing left in that pack for me. Next up, we've got not too much left here. A Weirding Wood, an Insolent Neonate, a Magmatic Rift. I really am not sure what I want here. I don't want the Weirding Wood. Insolent Neonate isn't really that great, but I take it. It's not really for my deck, but why not? May as well. Next up, we've got hopefully something, but nope, nothing. For my deck, none of these are playable if I'm going to be red-green. I've got an Explosive Apparatus, and that's really about all there is in the pack. So I think about maybe could I splash something? I know the mana fixing is pretty darn bad in this set. I figure the Explosive Apparatus is the only card that I might play, and I'm not really going to hate draft anything, so I take the Apparatus. 4 picks left. We look through this pack, and there's Confront the Unknown, and that's really about it. So I take it, and I pass, because that pack was dead to me. This pack, we've got a Fork in the Road or a Sanguinary Mage. I'm not going to take the Indignation or the Skeleton. I push the Fork in the Road to the front just because I know I kind of want to get Delirium online with the 2 Gibbering Fiends and the Moldagraph Scavenger. Here, there's nothing for me, so I figure I have to hate draft. I take the aggressive 3/1. I don't really care about Griff's Boon. If somebody plays it, they play it. But a 2 mana 3/1 is going to be something that I don't want to come up against, really, so I take that. 2 picks left. We've got ourselves Aim High or a non-playable card. I take the Aim High, because why not? I might main deck it, otherwise it'll be a decent sideboard card. Last pick, we get a big giant turtle anyways. Womp womp. Nobody wants that guy. Getting ready for pack 3, and I'm feeling a little bit behind the curve. My deck feels pretty weak so far. Meanwhile, my opponent to my right, or potential opponent to my right, opened an Arlen Cord, so I know I'm going to be up against some shenanigans. But I open this pack, and we've got a Blood Mad Vampire, which doesn't terribly fit my deck, but it could work. There's a Quilled Wolf. I've already got one. There's a Moonlight Hunt, which if I'm going, red-green werewolves is a decent removal card. My rare is an Ever After, and my flip card was just a Thraben Gargoyle. But I do take the Hunt because, hey, it's removal, and I want to take all the removal I can based on my previous experiences. Next pick, I'm hoping for some werewolves or something balmy, maybe even a nice rare. That would be awesome. We've got a Quilled Wolf, and we've got a Kessig Dire Swine. Well, hey, there's a Cult of the Waxing Moon. That would be nice if I was doing some flip shenanigans. There's a Hinterland Logger as well, and a Mad Prophet. Really, the Hinterland Logger and the Mad Prophet don't feel nearly as good as the Cult of the Waxing Moon, so it gets pushed to the true front. Mad Prophet, of course, is good, but more if you're in Madness, not if you're in just sort of a general deck. So I take the Cult of the Waxing Moon and figure, hey, maybe I can really try to, force myself to get some more double-faced werewolf cards so I can really get some shenanigans going with that. Next pack, what do we get? We get an Epiphany at the Drown Yard. That's a terrible rare. There's a Tormenting Voice, which doesn't really fit my deck, but okay. There's a Might Beyond Reason, and then nothing. There's a lot of blue. Maybe blue's open. I'm not quite sure. Again, I've felt the signals in this draft were super hard to read. Might Beyond Reason is an okay trick. It's not great, but it's okay. So I push it to the front and do ultimately just take it, because the Tormenting Voice didn't really seem like it would do too much for me. Next up, we've got another Might Beyond Reason, a Clip Wings, and a Lambhold Elder, which I snap take because, hey, it's a werewolf, it's a flip werewolf, it's a decent card nonetheless. Yeah, totally fine with it. I snap it up. Truth be told, I forgot I even had it. I never drew it in any of my 3 matches. But moving on to the next pack, we've got an Embry Wolf, another Drownyard Temple, Hulking Devil, Thornhide Wolves, and Skin Invasion. So many of you have heard my rant about Skin Invasion. I don't think it's very good, but I took it because I wanted to try it. I wanted to try firsthand to see if Skin Invasion is this insane, totally always removal, crazy mana efficient bomb that everybody thinks it is. Spoiler alert. I don't agree, even now after playing with it. Next up, we've got ourselves an Equestrian Scale, an Embry Wolf, a Thornhide Wolves, a Graph Mole, and a Village Messenger. So I have the Embry Wolf and the Equestrian Scale at the front. I think about the Thornhide Wolves. I mean, they're wolves. They're bigger, though, and they're not quite the hasty or aggressive guys that I want to have, the low curve guys. So I do take the 1-drop 1/1 that becomes a 2/2 menace. It's not good. It's not a card that I would normally play, but with Call to the Waxing Moon and with the Night Hunt, it could be pretty good. There's a Reduce to Ashes. There was another Call to the Waxing Moon there, which I pushed to the front. So it's really kind of between removal or a second Call to the Waxing Moon. If I could get 2 of those on the board and start transforming, I would just be flooding the board with wolves, and it would just be insane. I would love to do that. I think about the Reduce the Ashes, and I almost take it there. I almost take it, and then I go back and I say, no, I want to do shenanigans. I want creatures. I take the Cult of the Waxing Moon. Next up, we've got a Moldograph Scavenger. We've got a Fork in the Road. I think it's a foil duel. No, that's not a foil. Foil Foul Orchard. I push the Fork in the Road to the front because I know I want to get Delirium online, although I can't remember if I took a Fork in the Road or not. I think that I did, and so I do ultimately take the second Moldograph Scavenger. Maybe I need to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe I won't always be the beatdown, but we'll see. Next pack, we've got ourselves a Hulking Devil, a Rush of Adrenaline, Blood Mad Vampire. That's about it. I take the Blood Mad Vampire. Why not? Next pack, we've got ourselves a Quilled Wolf. We've got a Hulking Devil. That's about it. We take the Quilled Wolf. We'll play that. We will not play the Devil. Finally, last 3 picks, we've got a Tormenting Voice or last 4 picks. We've got a Tormenting Voice or 3 blue cards. Blue definitely seems slightly open, especially with that Drownyard Explorers there, I think. I think that was kind of the key, that blue might have been a little bit more open than I thought. Although I don't think I've seen that much amazing blue being passed around, so really I'm not quite entirely sure what the signals were in this draft. They felt pretty darn wonky, but they usually do it the first draft of a new set. Last 3 picks for real, we've got blue, white, white. We've got Rise from the Tides, Thraben Inspector, Not Forgotten. I don't think any of these cards are good. I don't think any of them are cards that I'm afraid of, so I take the blue card. Why not? Last 2 picks, we've got 2 red cards, Embry Wolf or Hulking Devil. I take the Embry Wolf because I won't play the Hulking Devil. And then finally, a last pick, Ghostly Wings, which seems a little bit low, to be honest. I think that's not the worst card because it does function as a bounce spell, but probably still a low pick, just not quite last pick. So here's ultimately how the draft deck ended up. I'm not super happy with it. It is nice and aggressive with 8 2-drops. Of course, one of those 2-drops does not attack, namely Moldograph Scavenger, and I didn't really have a way of enabling Delirium. I don't think I ever actually had it. I had to discard a land, basically, to Lightning Axe, or else I just didn't get it. But I had the Howlpack Resurgent, I had the Call to the Waxing Moon, and I did have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5 different werewolves that could flip, which probably is not quite enough. I probably should have gone way more heavily into that, way more quickly, in order to really make use of Call to the Waxing Moon and Moonlight Hunt. Moonlight Hunt was quite fantastic. You really only need even one werewolf can often get you there. And of course, if you have multiple wolves, then things can go really, really, really crazy. I did have extra wolves, of course, with the Embry Wolf and the 2 Quilled Wolves, so Howlpack Resurgent was actually rather nice. I rather liked that card. I think if you could first pick that card, I think it is a very solid build around if you can grab the stuff. The removal was okay. Otherwise, Rabid Bite was fantastic. Lightning Axe, of course, quite good. Reduced to Ashes was okay when I got to that mana, but I didn't always get there fast enough. Skin Invasion. Good old Skin Invasion. I don't like it. There were multiple times where I had this in my hand and I didn't have a blocker to play to kill off whatever I was going to put this on, so it was basically a dead card. There were a few games where I drew this super late into the game and it was basically worthless. I don't really care for Skin Invasion. People are treating it as though it's removal and that it's this super mana efficient 3/4. It's a 3/4 for 1. How can a 3/4 for 1 not be good? Well, of course, the trick there is that it's not a 3/4 for 1. It's an enchantment aura that says enchanted creature must attack each turn if able for 1. Then, if everything goes right, it becomes a 3/4, generally still roughly on curve. Yes, the investment was low, but you're still not getting that 3/4 until turn 3 or so, or even later. There were some times where I played this on my own creature because it was, worthless enough that I figured, hey, I'll attack in and I'll either get in for free damage or I will, get a 3/4 out of it. Well, that was followed up by Sleep Paralysis twice and a Bound by Moonsilver once. There's also plenty of exile removal that would not trigger Skin Invasion. There's so many ways to deal with Skin Invasion. I just don't care for it. I don't think it's remotely as good as some people are hyping it up to be. But yeah, otherwise things were decent. Cult of the Waxing Moon did some really good work. There was a couple of turns where I had 2 werewolves on the table with one of the cults, and flipping those 2 and making 2/2/2 wolves was fantastic. That card feels really powerful if you can really truly go off with it. Some of the other cards that kind of surprised me. Ember Eye Wolf was not the worst card ever printed. It was okay. I certainly didn't like drawing it or playing it any turn other than turn 2, but on turn 2 it was still a decent play. Village Messenger, definitely really weak. I really don't think you should really play Village Messenger all that often, only if you're desperate for werewolves. Ulrich's Kindred I rather liked. I think it's another key player for red-green werewolves and a pretty solid pickup. Quilled Wolf, of course, I think most people know that it's pretty good. It's a 2-drop 2/2, which is totally fine, and then later in the game it's still relevant, which of course is the downside of many 2/2s for 2. But yeah, the deck was underpowered, I think. There were no rares, there were no truly bomby cards. There was some synergy that didn't quite come together, so I wasn't super looking forward to the matches. I didn't quite know how they went. But we had 3 matches. We had a nice, perfect 8-man pod, and my first match was up against Doug. Doug was playing red-blue. It was kind of a spirits-ish / sleep paralysis. He had 3 sleep paralysis somehow. Kind of removal and hit you in the face in the air kind of deck, and it worked out pretty decently for him. I believe in game 1 is where I lost. Game 2, I got to be super aggressive, and I got to just smash in pretty quickly. I drew the removal that I needed, took out his spirits, and was just able to attack in and in and in and in. Not with my Skin Invasion Hinterland Logger, which was Sleep Paralysis. Game 3, I was able to hold the ground a little bit. He didn't draw any of his spirits or flyers, so I was in a much better shape to just kind of hang out on the ground. Eventually I got my Cult of the Waxing Moon, had a couple werewolves, intentionally flipped them a couple of times, got a bunch of wolves, and just ran over with the Howlpack Resurgence. And I won in 3. So I was feeling pretty good. I was surprised by my deck, the fact that I actually pulled a game out of it, and I was hoping that I could continue that up. Round 2, I was matched up against Garrett, who was playing white-green humans, although he was also splashing a single red mountain for an Arlen Cord and a single swamp for an Anguished Unmaking. Very greedy deck, very powerful rares. Game 1 was somewhat grindy. I managed to get in some early-ish damage and get him down to 2 before he started to stabilize. And eventually I top-decked Dance with the Devils, which was fantastic because, of course, I was able to attack with those 2 devils the following turn, and he either had to not block and take the 2, or block and kill them and take the 2 from them. So it was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. So I pulled out the first game. Game 2 was a turn 4 Arlen Cord. Hit all the mana. I believe that was the game where he warped landscaped into a mountain and then top decked a forest. And turn 4 Arlen Cord. Arlen was not terribly challenging to deal with, honestly. She stayed on the board for a good long while, but I had Menacey guys, and I was able to basically keep her at 1 loyalty the entire time, meaning that he couldn't lightning bolt anything without killing Arlen, which means he couldn't flip her over. All he could do was +1 her, and eventually I got through and killed Arlen. Unfortunately, after some misplays, discovering that Cult of the Waxing Moon is not a wolf as much as I had wanted it to be when I flashed in Howlpack Resurgence, I ended up losing that game. Game 3 was again a turn 4 Arlen Cord, and I was just trounced in that game. I had no chance of staying into it. The eventual board state was me with about 2 creatures and him with about 6 or 7 creatures, along with an Arlen Cord. So I lost that game in 3. Match 3 was up against Adam, who I'm on an unfortunate losing streak against, maybe 3 or 4 matches in a row now that I've lost. He was playing sort of black-green, kind of Voltron almost. He was playing Autumnal Gloom. He was really heavy into self-mill and getting Delirium online. He generally got Delirium online relatively quickly. Surprisingly bricked on Vessel of Nascency a couple of times. Not exactly bricked. He didn't draw 4 instants and sorceries, but he drew, 3 lands and a sorcery, and so his choice was take a land. So, it did certainly fuel Delirium, though. I was able to hold my own a little bit in the first game, although I was stuck on 3 mana, but of course with as many 2-drops as I had, I was able to keep playing things, but I wasn't able to get to my removal or my things that would actually be able to get me into the game. So while I held off a little bit, I eventually just got totally trampled over, I believe with a Moldograph Scavenger wearing some Slayer's Plate. Game 2, I tried to be a little bit more aggressive. I sided out my Moldograph Scavenger. I sided out, I think, one of my cults for just a couple more 2-drops, another Ember Eye Wolf, just to try to be super speedy. But again, I just stumbled. I drew a ton of land in that game, and I was also facing down I think it was turn 3 or turn 4, must have been turn 4, flipped Autumnal Gloom. So there was a 4/4 hexproof on the other side of the table right away, and I had no real way of dealing it, especially after it was Might Beyond Reasoned, and then after it was Equestrian Skilled, totally built up and just stomped me. So I lost that match in a rather quick 2, unfortunately, putting me at 1-2 for the night. Not a great start for my first Shadows over Innistrad draft, but that's kind of my experience with brand new sets. I usually don't do terribly well on the first night, partly because I think a lot of people are brand new to the set and aren't prepared for it, so they're drafting strangely. I'm brand new to the set, so I'm not probably drafting as optimally as I could, and the signals are just wonky. We didn't have really any new players tonight, so that was good. The draft pod was relatively strong, so I think it was just kind of the newness of the set. That being said, I noticed tons of packs that seemed to just be dead very early on. The playable commons dried up really, really fast in a lot of packs, and I was taking really suboptimal things like the Moldograph Scavengers and stuff like that. Honestly, I'm a little bit on the fence as to whether or not this is a Prince or a Pauper format. A Prince format being a format where the rares matter. You need to get a good rare or you lose. And a Pauper format being where the rares don't really matter all that much, and the commons are where the real kind of determination of if your deck is good or not comes out. And I think this is a Prince format. I think the good rares are just super good, just ridiculously good, almost unbeatable good if you don't draw the right answers right away. And I think the bad rares are awful. I opened a Showland and I was past a second Harvest and I was past a To the Slaughter. I did not get good rares, and so I ultimately didn't take a single one. The commons, yes, there's a lot of removal at common. My pod strangely had not too much. Almost all of my removal was relatively conditional. But yeah, I think this is a little bit more of a Prince format. But of course, this is just one draft in. I'm going to draft this set a lot because Innistrad is my favorite draft format. It was my first draft format when I came back into Magic. So I really want to love Shadows over Innistrad, and I'm going to draft a whole lot of it to try to get a really good handle on it. My first impression is that it's a little bit more princey. The rares that are good, super good. They come down and you just figure, how am I going to beat that? How am I going to beat Avacyn? How am I going to beat Arlen Cord? Even how am I going to beat Tireless Tracker sometimes? There are super, super, super good rares. The commons as well just dry up really fast, I find. I think you're going to have to either draft a really good rare or draft a really good synergy deck. And I think the trick with drafting the really good synergy decks is you need to figure out which deck isn't being drafted. Spider Spawning was amazing in Innistrad, but you had to be the only person drafting it. And then once everybody wanted to draft it, it was really hard to draft it, and it just became super weak. And you had two people playing really bad versions of spider spawning. And I think the same thing might happen with red-green werewolves and blue-green clues and the delirium decks. I think you need to figure out which synergy you need to get into, which one is open in order to do really well if you don't open one of the super ridiculous crazy bombs. But definitely let me know what you thought. If you've drafted already, let me know what you think of it. Please let me know what you think if you've drafted in paper. I don't really like drafting on Cockatrice or Xmage or anything like that. I explained this on the Limited Resources subreddit in a comment actually a little while ago. They don't follow pack runs properly, and they were having issues with the way double face cards were working, and the people drafting have no investment because they haven't paid anything and there's no prizes on the line, so they will try really crazy things. They will not be paying necessarily enough attention. Maybe if you drafted with 8 people that you know and trust and they're all good players, it may be viable insight, but the insight that you get from programs like that, where the players are just very disparate skill and very disparate amounts of attention, and the programs themselves are a little bit wonky, I don't really trust those for insight. If you've drafted in paper with a real group of players with prizes on the line in an actual competitive, even if it's a casual competitive, but a competitive situation, definitely let me know what you think of this format. Do you agree? Do the packs seem to die off a little bit early? Was that just me? Was I misevaluating a whole bunch of commons, or was it just a wonky draft pod? As well, let me know what you think. Is it Prince or Pauper? Are the rares going to determine this format, or are the commons going to determine this format? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, let me know how your FNM went. If you drafted, let me know. If you played Standard, let me know. I'm not a big Standard player, but let me know how your FNM went, your very first Shadows over Innistrad FNM. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at The Mana Leek. That's Leek, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/The Mana Leek. You've already found me here on YouTube. You've got that comment section down below. Please make use of that. As well, you should like my videos if you like them. That little thumbs up icon, that makes me feel good, and it also helps my videos rise up through the ranks. As well, if you haven't subscribed yet, you should. There's a button below each video. There's one in the outro of each video, and that will keep you updated on all the latest videos as they get posted. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.